with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bryna Donnelly from Greater Good, which we are incredibly honored to have here today, and take it away.
Awesome sauce. All right, I got all the things. Does this have a pointer?
I think that red thing is the pointer, but
Oh yeah, there we go. Too many things to juggle. Okay, I am super bad at microphones. I'm just going to say this now. So if you can't hear me, just yell, because I used to be a teacher, and so, and I went too fast. I used to be a teacher, so I'm just used to yelling at people in general, so sorry. Okay, so can you guys all hear me in the back okay? Do I need to be closer? It's creepy. Okay. All right. So, Greater Good Charities. We are a kind of a crazy organization. We started off as like 5 friends just doing weird stuff together, and we loved a bunch of different things. We loved working with people. We loved working with pets. We loved environmental stuff. And so we were like, you know what? We just need to say that we help humans, animals, and the environment. And really what that allows us to do is just whatever we want. And it's very, very fun and cool. I know a lot of people who are here at the conference have either their organizations have worked with us in the past, or they themselves have worked with us or been to one of our trainings. So thanks for sitting through some of this again if you've done that, because a lot of it will probably be redundant. Okay, so I would say the important from all of this crazy gibberish is not that we've given away $1 billion in product and all that, although that's a new landmark for us this year, so we're pretty excited. I know, it's right. I love it. But really what we do, the heart and soul of what we do is we provide aid, whether that is aid of us being boots on the ground, whether it's through the construction side of what we do, or just our amazing volunteer network that can just help, many hands make light work, that kind of aid, or whether it's actual funding, cash, funding in-kind product. We do a little bit of all of that. So what that really looks like is, when you think of where we started, we actually started in disaster. I mean, you guys, it's so weird. You've heard Katrina mentioned like 800 times today already, and I hate to sound like the broken record, but yes, of course we were involved in that as well. And so, when you think about a lot of the work we started doing, we did so in disaster, and then just from there realized people are in crisis, not just during disaster. So now we actually help with conflict. So we're an international organization. We've been in Ukraine since the second they started letting people, aid groups come in. We do all sorts of foreign disasters. We do conflict. And just a lot of really other cool stuff. So the meals that we provide can be during times of disaster. That's probably when we do most of that human meals work, just because there's a lot of people providing food and meals already in this country doing cool stuff. So we try to listen to what is already being done in a community and provide some of that gap bridging or gap filling. And so the meals for humans is one side. The meals for pets is super cool. We have amazing sponsors, Mars, Purina. We've worked with just about every pet food company that you can think of. And anytime they have what we would call blessings, they call mistakes, like they've made a bag wrong, or the picture is upside down. We're like, if I could just get into those factories and create some more of those errors, I would probably be that little gremlin that was in there doing that. But a lot of our pet food and a lot of our product in general comes from sponsors that donate. So while we have amazing product to give to our partners, just be mindful that it comes in kind of willy-nilly. It is not like a feeding program that you'd be like, I want to get all my food from Greater Good Charities. That is not our organization, for sure. We are definitely a feast or famine kind of product organization. So one of the other things I wanted to touch on today is some of the other essential supplies. So those of you who have known about Greater Good Charities for a long time, you may have gotten product from us in the past, and lots of times it comes in the form of an 18-wheeler. We are getting better at that because we realize that human service organizations cannot take 24 pallets at a time. Yeah, I know, it's obnoxious of us, right? And so one of the cool things that we try to advocate for are forming groups, forming coalitions, working together. Is there an animal shelter in your area that could take a truckload and then disperse it out, working in partnership with each other? So that's an avenue of approach for smaller organizations, but also just working with your animal welfare organizations in general, because a lot of times they're already getting our product and love to give it out to human service organizations, okay? And then I actually came to Greater Good Charities from a construction standpoint. I used to be a college professor, and me and my buddies started working at animal shelters back in the day, just doing renovations, little things, little volunteering things. We would go and help them fix their fences. We would go and paint some stuff. We would go and get dogs off of chains and strange things like that. And as an interesting kind of juxtaposition, I would come back to my students on the week after the weekend away doing this fun stuff with my buddies and be like, yeah, totally didn't get your tests graded, but I did really cool stuff. Gabby, will you raise your hand back there? So Gabby was one of those students way back in the day. I know she looks like she could still be a student. She's not. She's like the Dorian Gray picture in the attic. She ages not at all. But Gabby used to be one of our volunteers and now works for us doing this cool work. And so the really neat thing is that through all the work we have done with volunteers and all of that, we've been building at shelters, and now we've done 207 shelters all around the country, all around the world, actually. And the fun thing is through all that work, we've been able to provide almost 400,000 nights of safety. And so when you think about all the people and all the cool information that we've heard today about how people won't come to service, won't come to shelter unless they can bring their pet, it's kind of cool that you can provide nights of safety for people who wouldn't otherwise come to shelter. So, pet programming, my favorite thing. Okay, so as part of the product, Gabby, you put cards on the tables, right? So there should be a card with a QR code that'll take you to our website. I can only apologize so much for our website. It's like a rabbit hole of information. So it's really, did you find stuff? You just dive in? I dive right in. Okay, well, take that adventuresome attitude, and don't judge me when you're like, how in the world do we apply for all these things? There is a link at the top that says apply, and that'll kind of drag you down the rabbit hole to all these different things. But better than that, on the table, Gabby probably also put her business card. Did you put that there? She's like, no, because I do not have that many with me. Find Gabby. She will give you her email address, and you'll get it in the slides at the end of this. And just reach out to us if the website proves too daunting. Okay? Could I send it to? Perfect, Gabby. Find Marlene. Send her your information. And she's hiding. I love it. So Gabs will make sure she gets that over to Marlene, and she can get it to all your hot little hands. But the goods program is what we call basically our logistics program. We have a warehouse in Tulsa. We have another warehouse out in, just because I can't say it enough, Rancho Cucamonga. Literally didn't know that was a real place. I thought that was like a Bugs Bunny name. But it's a real place, and we have a warehouse there now. And then we also have one in Marietta, Georgia. And why I mention that is because, like I said, we do a lot of disaster work, and I know a lot of you are in places that get impacted by natural disaster. And so definitely, should you be afflicted with any of the natural disasters that seem to be plaguing our country all the time now, definitely reach out to us, because we can help in a lot of ways, whether it's through product placement, whether it's through just our disaster field team. We have a field response team that can help evacuate animals, move them to places of safety. We can find partners for you to work with in that regard. So lots of different avenues with our logistics stuff. Good packs. Good packs they started in disaster work, but now we use them for people living in crisis. So I know you guys are all DV, but we're going to talk about collaboration. And so, of course, most of you who are in domestic violence resource work understand that many of the people living on the street are actually doing so because of domestic violence. And so make sure you're collaborating with your homeless providers and your outreach teams, knowing that a lot of the people living in the street are doing so because of domestic violence. And so for people living on the street, we have our Good Packs program, and it's it's a Band-Aid, not gonna lie. It's not meant to solve all the world's problems, but what we love to use it for is a bridge to service. And so I know many of us have very mixed feelings about law enforcement and what they can do or don't do or should be doing and all the things. I'm not here to talk about that, but if we want to help them have a better relationship with the people who are living on the street and living in crisis, this can be an amazing tool. We can send them to homeless providers. We can send them to outreach teams, to law enforcement, to community agencies. You can stuff them full of your other service information so that people can be given these 72 hours worth of comfort and hygiene items, plus have all of this other information in there to get a little bit more of a sustainable service method or service information in their hands. We also, I did not put it on here, I am sorry, but we also have a pet pack version of this. So if somebody is living on the street and they have a pet, it just has it has 72 hours worth of food. That does have food in it. We do not provide human food, but it does have the pet food in it, bowl, leash, just basically, again, little items to get them through 72 hours until hopefully we can get them into a more permanent service model. Okay, emergency animal medical grants. It's a new-ish program for us in relation to domestic violence. Marissa, you guys got it, right? Have you guys gotten any of this or no? Not this one? Okay, so I think we should. There we go. So the emergency animal medical grants are really interesting. They're a reimbursement grant. They're not meant like, please do not go out and spend $5,000 fixing somebody like cute Jonathan here. Jonathan is amazing. He had eye issues and he had that rhino tusk. I don't know what else to call that tooth. I'm sure there's a scientific name for it. But so Jonathan is a perfect example. He was a pet that came in. And obviously the organization really would not have been able to they could not have afforded the surgery that would have been able to fix poor Jonathan up. But what ended up happening is they found basically just an angel in disguise who was willing to subsidize this. It was a veterinarian who was like, I will do the work. Please submit for the reimbursement, and I'm just going to hope for the best. And we were able to do it, thank goodness. And so they're not meant to be a diagnostic. They are meant to be treatable. So anything where you have a pet that's come into care that you want to help that has something terminal, sorry, these grants don't cover that. But anything that we would see that's domestic violence related, like maybe a long-term injury that the abuser withheld care for, we hear that a lot. Lots of times it's dentals. We keep bashing on the Chihuahuas today. I'm going to jump on that train. Chihuahuas have the worst dental hygiene known to the world of animal welfare. They lose teeth like I shed hair. So they are just a perfect example of that. So think about that submission process. You can reach out to Gabby. She can put you in touch with the team who provides those emergency animal medical grants. I think right now they're sitting at the average award is anywhere from like 500 to about 1,500. So that's kind of it. You will see on the, it's kind of like a survey. We don't really do complex. You guys are used to complex applications. We have like here's your one-page jot form, apply for the grant. And so this is not even that formal, it's more of a survey. And it will ask you, are you comfortable sharing the story? A lot of our fundraising at Greater Good Charities is done via social media. And so as long as you tell that grant team, hey, we're not comfortable sharing any part of the story, or maybe we're comfortable sharing the story, name withheld, of course, but we can't do the photo. So, just be very upfront and honest with that team about what you're willing to share, and they will make it work, okay? All right, what do we got? So building and renovation. Some of you, I know we have our friends from Rhode Island went next door because they've already got a Rescue Rebuild grant. And so many of you have worked with us before, but we are no longer calling it Rescue Rebuild, but I mention that just because so many people didn't know that Rescue Rebuild and Greater Good Charities were the same. I know, too many names. It's all confusing. So as part of our construction grants, like I mentioned, we started in animal welfare. We started renovating animal shelters. Then we moved into wildlife shelters. And then we were in, sorry to make fun of any of the Kentucky people, but Moorhead, Kentucky is the highlight of all destination hotspots in Kentucky. It's a tiny little town. We were there way back in 2010 doing an animal shelter renovation, and there was a news story about it. And a domestic violence shelter saw the news story and called the shelter and said, hey, would they be willing to come over and put kennels in our garage so that our domestic violence survivors could bring their pets with them? And I'm embarrassed to say that I had never, ever, ever thought about people in crisis with pets until that moment. And it was really that aha for me. And so starting in 2010, we started evaluating what could we do to help people in crisis with pets. So now we took all of that knowledge of what we learned from building for lions and tigers and dogs and cats and horses and apply that to human services. And I say that because I think you guys, no, I think it was actually Ross who mentioned it during the Michelson presentation, that children tend to be harder on construction than animals. And it's good because once you've built for a bear, you understand how to build for kids. And so it really does help. Build your spaces to be durable. You can withstand even children. I love it. All right. So as part of getting a construction grant from Greater Good Charities, we are like Habitat for Humanity. We are not a cash-based construction grant team. We are contractors, and we come and we do a variety of things. So, you know, that's Gabby sitting up in a rafter up there. Let me see if I can make fun of her some more. That's her. She hates insulation. So she's wearing like a hazmat suit to do insulation work. But we do a lot of different things, whether it's small fencing, big fencing. And so just know that whatever you have that you are trying to do for animals at your shelter, our team can do it. It's not just all about doing kennels and doing stuff like that. We do a large variety of things. And then I would say that the real light bulb moment for us in the world of building at human service shelters came when we were very fortunate to get a bunch of funding to do grants to human service shelters, specifically for domestic violence shelters back in 2016. And we would call shelters and we would email shelters. And you know what y'all did to me? You didn't answer my calls. Yeah, it was great. It goes to my emails, didn't answer my calls. It was the light bulb moment that we needed, though, because we realized that human service organizations were going to need a lot more support if they were going to start pet programming. And so as a result of that light bulb moment, us with our long-term partner, Red Rover and Greater Good Charities have been partnering, again, since Katrina. It keeps coming up. But since Katrina, we've been partnering on disaster and animal sheltering and a bunch of other ways that our two organizations blend together. And we did a joint project up in the state of Washington. One of the people who didn't ghost us, it was great. And we came to the conclusion that we were going to need to do more if we were going to get domestic violence shelters and homeless shelters to say yes, that we do in fact want to start pet programming. And so we did that, started thinking it through, started offering joint grants, and then decided we needed to go the extra mile. So in 2019, we started Don't Forget the Pets. And so it is a joint initiative between our two organizations. We do trainings, so we will come to your town and we will do a full-day training workshop. We love to put everybody in the community in the same room together and really get them to figure out how to solve problems together. And so their trainings are free. All we ask is that one of you host us, and that involves, please find us a venue because you know your community better than us. Even if you can't get it for free, we will pay for the venue, but you know what goes on in your community and who has space for us. So we would love to come do a training in your local area and get everybody in the room together to help solve problems. As part of our Don't Forget the Pets other side of it, so in addition to the trainings, we have a website. It has tons of resources. So because we've been able to partner with so many different human service organizations, we have an entire document library with all of their protocols and processes. So, you know, basically our premise is, I think you guys said it, you can't be the expert in everything, and we don't try to be, we don't pretend to be, but we are master networkers, and so we love to put people in touch with other organizations that are doing the exact same thing. And why reinvent the wheel? Use their process and protocol, take it off of our website, tweak it to fit whatever you want, blend them together. You have our permission to do whatever you want with anything that is on our website, for sure. And so then we'll talk about some more of the services that we have, but I just wanted to jump into what our training really is about. And so most of you already are doing pet programming in one form or another, right? But I've heard it from a couple of you today that you still have maybe trouble with staff buy-in. You want to expand, but maybe your board of directors doesn't want you to. You're struggling for funding. Aren't we all going to be struggling for funding this year, right? And so when you look at the why portion of our training, it's really about that. It's different statistics, it's different information, and whether that is for staff and board buy-in or whether it's to help with fundraising, there's just a ton of good information, both in the training, and then we have a handbook as well. Oh, look at this, Katie Campbell. I stole her slide, and she has stuff in there. She's got animation in there. Sneaky girl. And so some of the stats, you've heard a bunch of them today, but I would also say you can find the URI, Urban Resource Institute in New York City, one of our largest domestic violence providers that's pet friendly in the country. They worked with the National Hotline to do the PALS report. And the PALS report is amazing. So much good data and information. You can find the link to it through our website, but also just Google PALS report, right? And so these are just a couple of the really cool stats. And so as part of that why also, we very not subtly emotionally blackmail people into the if you are not doing pet programming, are we really serving the people that we say we are? And so I just love, 97% say that keeping their pet with them factored into coming to service, coming to shelter, getting safe, and that 91% say they need their pet to heal. And so if they won't get out of their terrible situations and they're not going to be able to heal, again, are we really helping them? So we love to walk everybody through that in the why portion of our training. And then kind of also as part of that why, lots of the early stress of not being able to get domestic violence shelters and homeless shelters to do this work, a lot of it was just simply, we're overworked already. We couldn't possibly take on another thing, especially during COVID. Boy, do we get that a lot. And so one of the things we love to walk groups through is just, how do you put pets to work for you? What are you doing to really incorporate the pets that you're bringing into shelter fully into your systems so that you can use them to help you get people to successful outcomes more quickly? And so, you're going to get these, but my highlights that I love the most are the teaching empathy and trust. When you think especially of the kiddos that we serve and that come into shelter and that that run across our lives, kids that have been exposed to domestic violence, somebody mentioned, one of the speakers, it might have been you guys, talked earlier about, kids that have been raised in a house that has domestic violence. Sometimes the abuser forces them to play along in that, or the pet becomes weaponized and used in that way to, again, basically just work against them. And when you think about what that means and how that's going to play forward in their trauma as they try to overcome this, it's really hard, And so when we think about keeping pets with their kids, to me, that's probably one of the most compelling reasons to do this, separating a child from their best friend or not helping them recover from that relationship that they did have with their pet. It's hard, And so whether we're looking at this from a healing and you're trying to teach that child to be empathetic towards their own pet, or whether it's, that pet is their soulmate and being able to heal without having their pet with them at the shelter is going to be challenging. So it's just one of my favorite reasons for starting pet programming, for sure. Okay, we love our quotes from our grantees. It is just one of our favorite things. It helps with our storytelling. It helps with fundraising. It helps in every manner. And so I'm going to talk about fundraising in a minute, but also just really keep in mind that, we get we get in a certain path of how we fundraise for domestic violence shelters and for pet programming and domestic violence shelters. And, we take our security very seriously. But we need to be shouting this from the rooftops. And I think getting these sound bites and getting these stories, and obviously protecting the security of the client who is giving you these sound bites is really important. But also don't forget that your staff and the stories that they can tell about what it meant to them to be able to help people. Years of having to say no to being able to help people with pets is just absolutely soul-crushingly demoralizing. And so I love getting staff quotes as much as I like getting survivor testimony. So this came from one of our partners, but they were talking about, the project of starting a new program is always interesting. It's hard. But there's going to be bumps along the way, and they are surmountable. And so when you think about how good you all are at problem solving, just from the casework you have to do every day, and the work you do with the children in your shelters, and I'm not comparing children and pets, please don't think I am, but the system is the same. That overwatch that you have of how are the children being treated in your shelter and how are the pets being treated in your shelter, it's kind of the same system, just in a different way. Sure. Mm-hmm.
It really helps the children and, of course, the mom or the dad to kind of like, go towards the transition.
Absolutely.
It's helped them through that, and then it's like, it's so helpful
It
for us
really
to see it.
Yeah, and I think from both the you getting to see it, it's great, better for the morale of the shelter, better for the morale of the parent. And when you think of classic, we talk about power and control, of course, in domestic violence all the time. And think of how out of control kids are, and think about how they must feel in these situations. And when you think about them then losing a pet on top of that, it's got to be such a tailspin of out of control. And so definitely, it's not that hard. You guys are already doing it. I'm just here to try to talk you into expanding everything so you can take twice as many people, right? Of course.
This seems to be a little bit of a common theme today, too.
Yeah,
Is
absolutely.
It is, if you're not a little uncomfortable, you're not making change, and change is
Yeah.
slow.
And even good change is hard, right? We realize that change is hard.
But, you don't, zero change happens in your comfort zone.
That is a very fair assessment. It really is. All right, so the next section when we do our trainings and the way our handbook is laid out, we move into the how. And for us, the how always starts with kind of the flip of that script of why would you not do it, right? We always love to say, give us all your challenges. Why are you afraid to start this? Why are you afraid to expand it? What does that look like? And so every time we do a training, every time we meet with a group of people, we always ask them, give us your biggest barriers. And after years and years of doing this is the top 7 that we hear from you all. Space, allergies, funding or sustainable funding, liability, fear of pets, animal bites, cleanliness. And so when you think about this, I would challenge you, no, I was going to say minus the bites, but kids bite too. So I would say minus allergies. Can kids be allergic to other kids? No, but I'm allergic to air, I think, some days. And so you're going to be dealing with allergies, whether it's dust, mold, blah, blah, you're going to be dealing with this. So I challenge that on the surface, when you think of all of these things, aren't these already issues that you're dealing with just housing people communally, right? And so then how can we walk you through, well, what are the things to expect when you now incorporate pets into this? What added things, maybe other barriers or other problems are you going to come across? And so for the how, we really walk you through each of these different potential, stumbling blocks. And what are you going to do, whether it's in your construction design, just simple how you move pets through your shelter, how do they go from being in room to walking outside? So all of these things can fairly easily be mitigated, and we love to walk shelters through how to do it. One of the things we get asked for a lot. Oh, question back there. Sorry, I don't have my glasses on, so yell at me if I seem like I'm ignoring you. cost you for doing it anyway. Yep. Perfect. The walk around for insurance. So I'm going to say my trite answer, and then I'm going to give you a real one. The trite answer is, yeah. Oh, yeah, please. Yeah. Yeah, that's not a pet. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They have to have it established before they come to shelter. Well, that's a new one for me. Interesting. Cool. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. So I would say a couple of things about that. Do any of you get insurance for free? Show of hands, how many don't pay for their insurance? Right, yeah, nobody. So shop around. There are so many insurance providers. There are so many insurance companies. And so that's my trite answer. My trite answer is find another company. We get very hooked on like, but I've been with them forever. He's such a nice guy. Yeah, if he was that nice, he'd find you better coverage. So the other thing would be on our Don't Forget the Pets website, we have a list of insurance providers that do cover and underwrite policies like this. And then the other thing I would say is in each of your communities, you've probably, I'm assuming most of you have been in an animal shelter at some point in your life, whether you're adopting or just happen to be like, what's that puppy in the window doing? If there were not insurance companies that underwrote having complete and utter strangers with small, unmanaged children running around free range in animal shelters while meeting new, strange dogs they've never met in their lives, there's not a single animal shelter that would have insurance. Okay, so we have these policies, we have these precedents, we have a list on our site, and definitely shop around. And so what I would caution is when you think about going to your insurance companies and you think about what you're going to bring to the table, I feel like a lot of organizations make the mistake of calling their insurance company and being like, what do we need to do? How do we get this insured? And just remember, you're talking to a person that I don't know, what do people who answer the phone at insurance companies make? $15 an hour? You've got a person who has literally zero concern for your well-being, your organization, what you're trying to do. And so what you need to do is come to them with a list of how you are mitigating risk, because at the end of the day, they're just like the casino that we're standing in. They are all about like risk mitigation and gambling on you not falling through with that. And so you want to think about your building insurance. You're going to show them that you've built out of very durable construction materials. You've got like very little way that a pet is going to cause damage that you are going to put in a claim for, all right? And so then you want to look at it from a workers' comp standpoint. What are you doing in your process and protocol? What are you doing to protect your staff? And whether that's we're going to do in-room and the majority of the pet care is going to be on the pet parent. They're going to love to hear that. They love that plan. So I know that sometimes seems riskier, like, ooh, in-room and not in a kennel. But from those buckets of insurance, building, liability, workers' comp, that is their favorite method. And for most of them, they all have their different zhuzh, right? And then from a liability standpoint, you want to talk about what is in your policy and your procedure that is keeping people who are not the pet parent away from a particular pet, And so you want to talk about how, your outside play space is not a dog park. You're going to have one pet parent and the pet in there at a time. You are going to teach them how to be on leash properly in the hallway. They walk to the outside, you don't have dogs passing. Put up mirrors in your hallway so that dogs don't even need to be. You can, like those hospital mirrors. So little simple things like that where I stick my head out, ooh, I see there's a dog coming around the corner. I'm going to nip back into my room. I'll wait for that to go by, and then I'm going to carry on. So different little things like that really go a long way to showing insurance companies that you've thought through all the things that make them go, pet programming. Cool? And then obviously just shop around. You pay them. All right. Yeah. Cool. Okay. So, as far as like the checklist, so we do get asked a lot like, hey, you don't have a checklist of what do I have to do? What are the steps I need to take to start a pet program or grow a pet program or expand it? And that's because you all come at this from so many different places. And so we like to put things into different, like, we just think of it as buckets. And so, are you struggling with staff and board buy-in? Are you struggling with collaboration? Are you not sure how to design your space, work on your flow of traffic? How many rooms should be pet-friendly? How many shouldn't be pet-friendly? So all of these different things, all your policies, your procedures, how you're going to fundraise, we can just jump right to the fundraising piece. We can start with the staff and board buy-in. Wherever you're coming to this process, that you really got, it's very much designed to help the individual organization. So, in the how section, the biggest thing that we love to stress is collaboration. And so, we keep saying it, you don't have to be the expert in everything. And so when you think about where you're struggling in your programming that you already have, or how you're going to expand it, or what do we do with dogs that aren't thriving in our space? And right now we're doing foster, but is there something else we could be doing? And so these are the main 3 collaborative partners that we think of in any successful pet programming. And I know, we were talking about it back at our table, like, how do you pull from just doing a foster-based program to in-room? How do you deal with animals that, are very reactive? And that is where your animal welfare partners are going to play such a critical role in the success of your pet programming. I love to remind people that you are so used to people coming in with PTSD, with some level of trauma, with some level of stress, and then somehow we do not transfer that to the pet. We forget that pets coming in are going to have stress, and they're going to have trauma, and they're going to have all of that same experience that their pet parent did. And so lots of times we love to judge. We're like, ooh, that dog just will not go to the bathroom outside. It likes to go to the bathroom inside. And so I would challenge each of you to be thinking of reaching out to your collaborative partners, because that is probably that dog's cry for help. It is not a bad dog. It is not a bad pet parent. It is a dog that is crying for help. And so when you think of it, reach out to your animal welfare orgs. They're going to help you with all of those strange little behaviors that you're like, I really wish that dog wouldn't do that. And then maybe it would perform well in this program. So think of that. Veterinarians, we very strongly advocate for having just great relationships with your vets. We've seen very many strategies that we can walk you through during the training, or we do walk you through in the training. We can walk you through when we do one-on-one coaching. But the vet partners, a lot of times, especially if you have a very large program, we advocate for having multiple vets. Like, you maybe use this one for just your wellness and your first check, get them up to date on their vaccines. Then maybe another one that just does spay-neuter for you if you go that route. And then another one that would maybe do the more severe cases that might be a little bit more expensive. Most communities have multiple vets. They ask us, the veterinarians ask us all the time, how can we get involved? How can we help? And so reach out to them, and don't be afraid to tell them your story. You're probably going to have them sign a confidentiality agreement anyway. So shout it from the rooftops. Tell them what you're trying to do, because they really do. They do want to help and give back as well. So, because I'm sure you can read this, but you're going to get the slides, don't worry. And so, yeah, we say that the foundation core is that, you've got a human service organization, animal welfare partner, vet partner, but then really expand that collaborative piece, whether it's you are trying to work on, better pet-friendly housing, or whether you're trying to see what legislation you can do. You have to get the whole community talking about it, because the more we talk about it, the more solutions are just going to, they're going to filter to the top. If we don't let people know what the problems are that you are facing as human welfare or human service organizations, they're not going to understand it. Even things like local businesses. It is so crazy cool that when you shout this from the rooftops, we have an organization that every year they provide so much pet food to us, because they're just like, they just do a drive within their small business. It's literally this tiny business in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and they love to give us food. And we're like, you do know we have huge pet food sponsors. And they're like, we just love it. And so reach out to those local businesses, because they might do all of your supply drive for you. They might do a roundup at the cash register for you. You don't know if you don't ask them. So get them involved. And then obviously the other thing is, then if they have anybody in their life who is facing domestic violence or facing homelessness, then they know, hey, go to these people. They're already doing this. They're helping pets. They're helping people. It's just a great way to get the whole community involved and behind what you're trying to do. Yep. Shameless plug for Field of Dreams. I love it. But yes, if you build it, they will come. So you guys have already, I mean, I saw the posters out there. Amazing all the work you are doing. And so I didn't want you to think that, like, you know, you were going to get away from me talking about construction, even though you have programs, because of course I'm going to talk about it. It's my passion. So I would say, no matter what your model is now, think about expanding it. Thinking about, if you're doing in-room, does that work for every pet? Could you maybe have kennels on site that would also help for maybe the dogs that don't thrive in-room? If you're doing kenneling, let's think about how many people have said to you, I'm not putting my dog in a kennel, and they didn't want to come to shelter because you were going to put their dog in a kennel. Could you maybe adopt a new process there? If none of that has worked and you want to think about, like, how can I work with an animal welfare partner, because I just have some of those dogs that need a little bit of extra attention. They need that full-time trainer who's working with them, helping them. And so we have all of these different, we just call them pet plans. Couldn't come up with a more creative name. I'm not that person. Sorry. So we have all these different pet plans. And on the website, on Don't Forget the Pets website, and in the training handbook, we just kind of lay them out with all the pros and cons of each method. And so in-room being our co-sheltering, I know number 2 gets people all the time, and I apologize. I know everybody in this room does communal housing, right? I mean, that is domestic violence sheltering. By that, I mean our large format shelters, though. So like Denver has a single room shelter that they do for their community homeless shelter that I think houses like 200 people in one room. Can you imagine the chaos level? And they do that with pets. So there's a will, there's a way, right? And so that's what we mean by pet plan 2, those big open formats. Converting an existing space. You saw on the barrier slide that the biggest complaint that we get, or the biggest hurdle, I should say, is that we don't have the space for it. We've done 207 shelters, and for every one of those shelters, a lot of times we go scout other shelters, plus all our coaching. I can't even tell you how many shelters I've been in, and I have yet to be in one that doesn't have either that junk room, junk basement, junk closet, junk something. And so my challenge is always, okay, do your Christmas decorations really need to be heated and cooled? Can we put them in a shed? Can we put them somewhere else? Can we put them in your executive director's garage? Yeah, because I'm mean like that. And so converting an existing space in your shelter is probably one of the most economical ways to expand your programming. And then building a new space. Everybody loves this one, but not everybody has the footprint to do it on their property. And so I'm going to show you a case where we did that at one of our shelters. But yes, it is the most expensive, but it is also probably the favorite of everybody who works with us, of course. And then 5, we do actually have some design strategies and techniques for animal shelters that have what we call temporary care programming. And really what that's about is just still providing that dignity that we try to provide for our clients. Please, try to work with your animal welfare partners that if they're going to help you and they're going to be taking your pets, let's work with them about, like, let's not walk the DV survivor into the main area during the height of your adoption hours. Let's see if we can set up other times, other places, other ways that we can pass off these animals that is going to be a little bit better and more secure for our DV clients and our homeless clients. So I just give you one highlight here. Are you going to keep me honest on time? How am I doing? You've got 15 minutes left, and if you go over, I don't think anybody's going to care. All right. Well, I like that attitude. They're like going to fall asleep if I go over. All right. All right. Well.
They can do jumping jacks,
Oh, now we're exercising. No, I can't do that. All right, so this is just kind of a case study I just wanted to show you, just to give you some ideas of things that you can do. And so when you're designing, especially, like, this is obviously the build a separate space for it. I as a contractor, I love when I get shelter calls like this. So a shelter in Georgia, Liberty House, called us, and they were like, we have this really cool building, and we think you can turn it into like a pet space for us. And I was like, that's awesome, man. And I'm just thinking, this is going to save us so much money. We're going to be able to do so much cool stuff. And then we go there, and I'm like, have raccoons been living in here for 20 years? Like, what has happened to this building, you guys? And so, as a contractor, I will tell you this, bulldozer is sometimes your best friend. Okay, so we bulldozed that little shed because the raccoons indeed had been living in it for probably about 10 years, and we built them this. And so we have a couple of different ways that we advocate for doing these separate standalone buildings. And sometimes you can do kennels, but I know it's probably not very politically correct, but we say in animal welfare, when a dog has to live in a cage too long, when a cat has to live in a cage too long, they get what we just call kennel crazy. And like I said, I'm sure there's a better term for that, but that is what we call it. And it basically just involves, if you have a pet that's been living in a cage or a kennel for an extended period of time, they just mentally start to decompress or decompose. Decompress. That's what I need to do, is decompress. So you can provide tons of enrichment for them when they're in kennel. I'm not saying that it's a deal breaker. Of course, we kennel animals all the time in animal welfare. But if you can do something like this instead, where you create basically little living rooms, they don't take up a lot more space than a kennel. That room right there is probably 7 feet by 10 feet. Most kennels that you see in animal shelters tend to be around the size of like 4 by 6, 4 by 10. And so it doesn't take up that much more room. And so I would challenge, like, if you are going to try to have an extended period of stay, like, I don't know what your average lengths of stay are now. We're hearing 90, 120 days, even longer for emergency housing, let alone transitional or long-term. And so if you're trying to keep an animal in a cage for that long, it's not the best for them. And so for a little bit extra money, you can do something like this. And the nice thing about the we call it pet retreat, the pet retreat style, is that you're also providing that human-animal bond space, so that if you have pets that are not able to live in room with their pet parent, in addition to providing like a kenneling strategy, you're also providing a space where the survivor can come out and spend some time, snuggle up on the couch, stream a show, hang out, and spend quality time healing with their animal. And so, it's pretty cool. Additionally, the nice thing is, lots of times we'll have survivors come into shelter and they don't just have one dog. They have 2 dogs and a cat. They have 2 cats and a dog, or 2 cats and a gerbil, and these spaces are designed for both. You have kitty litter, you have cat perch, you have cat shelves so they can look outside and have that mental enrichment for themselves. That is a dog door in the back, and so we love doing dog doors. We like them in room as well, so there's that. But then anytime you can offer a pet relief area, so whether you're in room or whether you're doing something like this, giving the pet the ability to come and go as they please really goes a long way towards reducing their stress. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So what are you hearing? Okay. Yep. Mhm. How are you zoned? Are you zoned residential? Yeah, you should be fine. Mm. Okay, also completely also, yeah, because they're so cool about that. You know what I would say, again, because this is why I usually do these with Katie from Red Rover, because she's the politically correct one. I am not. But what I would say is, go to them with your story and tell them, like, we are a domestic violence shelter, and give them some of the stats and be like, people do not come to shelter if they can't bring their pets. The first time a survivor is in trouble because they couldn't bring a pet, you bring that to the attention of the zoning and planning board, and you say, that person nearly lost their life because they couldn't bring their pet. And then just give them that hard stare. Variances are pretty easy to obtain. So no matter what your zoning is, unless you're in a historical neighborhood, but I doubt a nursing home would ever have been put in a historical neighborhood. The historicals are the hardest of all of our zoning permitting planning to deal with, but even them, we build in them all the time. And so it's really just a matter of finding that one advocate. My advice would be, never do it over the phone, never do it via email. Go and stand there in front of them and tell them your story. And basically you just dare them to say no to what you're trying to do. Other pieces of advice that we usually give is never say the word kennel, because as soon as you say the word kennel to a zoning planning person, they're thinking like gigantic dog kennel, commercial facility. There's going to be hundreds of dogs barking in the neighborhood all day and all night. And so we just say we're trying to accommodate our clients with pets. They don't need to know how that's going to shake out sometimes. If you're looking to do outside, though, I mean, unless you are in some very strange zoning thing, people have backyard dogs all the time, like yards for them. I'm not saying they live out there. And then if they are giving you trouble about having a separate building, definitely reach out to Gabby and I, and we can walk you through it. Where are you located? Perfect. Yeah. Ohio's tricky, man. They got a lot of weird rules. Yeah, I'm a Pennsylvania person, so that Commonwealth thing. I don't know what that means really, but it means you're a pain in my butt. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because it just doesn't look good when they're saying no to any sort of crisis prevention, and so it's really just a matter of making them come to terms with that. But variances are really not that hard. People get very scared about that, like, am I going to have to hire a lawyer to do this? Am I going to have to do all this? It's not that. It's literally a form, and then there's a bunch of old dudes that sit on a board usually and vote on it. And so, yeah. Okay, so what we did cat, dog, we got gerbil in here too. Lids. You guys, if you're going to do outside dog runs, please be mindful of putting some sort of like structure on the top of it. I have a cattle dog, which basically means I have a dog that, I don't even know what to say. It's like a velociraptor in my house that just gets out of any form of containment that we try and just does all sorts of crazy stuff. So lids over your outside areas are really, really helpful, especially if they have 24/7 access to them. All right, what do we got? Oh, one other thing I forgot to mention, guys. When you're building out your spaces, whether it's you're going to do in-room or whether you've got multiple floors or you're trying to do something in a basement, be mindful of ADA compliance because, you're for sure going to have pet owners that have mobility issues. So we built a ramp on this one, so one of the 3 rooms was ADA compliant. Okay, shameless plug for Tinkerbell. Speaking of ESAs, that's my ESA. She is a magic dog. But it reminds me, pair the cute dog you can use and then pair it with a cool story. So we had not even had Liberty House, the shelter that I just showed you. They hadn't even been open a week and already had people filling up the pet retreat. And so this was just a cool quote from one of the survivors that used it. Liberty House also presented a really interesting story that we didn't even know it was unfolding, but we had a survivor. We did not know she was a survivor that came to volunteer with us. And so she was there and then just got talking about she came because she wanted to give back because her pet that she was able to get out of her situation with saved her life. She said she had lost all hope and that if she had not been, able to have her cat with her, she probably wouldn't have had the strength to get out of bed. And so she was able to get out on her own with her pet. But she said if she had had a shelter that was able to take pets, she would have been able to get out years earlier. And so she just wanted to come and pay it forward. And so just be mindful that, sometimes your survivors can be your best volunteers later on down the road because they really understand what this means to them to be pet friendly. And so if you're thinking of those dogs or cats that are not thriving in shelter, we've seen foster programs where there are survivors who end up being fosters down the road later. And so lots of cool ways you can plug them in because they love to give back. Just keep it in mind. Okay, structures and operations. Katie complains because I give her the most boring parts of our training and she gets the structures and the policies and the procedures. I will not bore you with the details, but just know that we walk you through a lot of these things. We have partners that get real in the weeds. You will take your dog for 4 walks a day. You will provide enrichment for them 6 hours a day. You will make sure they do this, do that, do this. And then we have others that are just like, make sure your dog has food and water. That'd be cool. And so just know that, like, it's all up to you. We have samples on the website, but do whatever you are comfortable with. Do whatever you are comfortable mitigating. And then one of our favorite partners up in Maine said to us, be comfortable with the gray. Set up your policies and your procedures, but don't be so rigid that it backs you into corners that you don't want to be backed into. So just make sure you have your guidelines, you have your structure, but then be flexible. You know, domestic violence presents a lot of challenges. We had a story, the same Comfortable with the Gray organization. They had a policy that if you have left shelter and you're gone more than 48 hours without checking back in, if you have a pet and you've left the pet there, within 48 hours, that pet can be surrendered to their animal welfare partner and go up for adoption. And so they had that, and they had a survivor come in, and she did not come back after 48 hours. And they were like, oof. And so instead of sticking to their policy, their executive director, who is also one of their fosters, I love that. She's the gift that keeps giving. So she actually took the pet home knowing that, like, this doesn't feel right. It doesn't sit right. You know, this is not a pet parent who would have given up a pet or walked away from their pet. They were so bonded. And so the director took the pet home. 72 hours go by, the police bring the survivor back. The survivor had been held against her will by her abuser. And so she couldn't come back, you know? And so, but they held on to her pet, and that survivor said that, you know, the thing she was most worried about through this incredible process of being held captive was that the shelter was going to get rid of her pet. I love that. Bonding of pets and people, it's crazy. But be comfortable with the gray, because you will run into circumstances like that where you're like, something is just not right, and I know this is our process, but we're gonna give a little. Okay. One of my favorite quotes from one of our partners: "Don't be afraid to mess up and do something wrong." You know, I mean, when you think about it, I definitely can say in my own personal life that some of the greatest things I've learned because I messed something up. And so just give yourself grace. You know, we talk about having grace and patience and not being judgy, you know, to our clients and to our staff and to all of that, but give yourself a break. This is, you know, it's just taking care of animals, and you're going to do the best of your ability, but then also some things are just going to go squirrely Dan, and you're going to adapt, you're going to move forward. And so don't be afraid. And then again, just another plea for are we really serving our clients if we're not serving their pets? And so it is an essential element in programming for victims of domestic violence. I don't think it's a choice or an add-on. It is part of an effective program. And so just be mindful, like, what are we doing? Are we causing more trauma by not taking pets, or not offering full services, or not letting pet parents stay with their pet at shelter? So anything we can do to evolve our programming, to make it better for our clients, to get them to that happy outcome faster, that's why we're all here. So evolve, 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 right? And then fundraising. All right, so we talked about some of the Greater Good Charities grants, but as part of our, what is Katie doing to me? I love it. She does the tricky things. There it is. There it is. So when you think about how we are fundraising and the mechanisms that we use, and when you think about how you fundraise for domestic violence versus a pet program at a domestic violence shelter, I'm definitely like challenge you to think outside the box. We tend to be very closed. We tend to not shout our stories from the rooftops. $147 billion. We're right back to Bugs Bunny terms. It's like Rancho Cucamonga. It's like billions of dollars spent on pets. That's insane. That is so much money. I'm part of that problem. My corgis have so many costumes. It's so bad. I'm the worst pet parent ever. My dogs judge me so hard. But think about that. If we are spending $147 billion on pet products annually, that is a huge donor demographic, man. Tap into that. Cute sells. Cute sells, okay? And so when you think about like how you're going to do that, again, it doesn't need to be like glamorous, glorious. I always love it on our follow-up reports for our grants. I'm like, give me a story. And then we stopped. We're like, don't give me a story. I don't want 40 pages. What I want is like one cool soundbite. Get that one cool soundbite from your survivors, from your staff. Pair it with a stock image, and go for it. We have yes. It's perfect. I love it, love it. We have lots of cool like tricks and tips on the website to help you out. We were just in, where were we, Gabs? Jersey. We were just in Jersey doing one of our trainings, and this group came up to us and they were like, yeah, we had this big event. And then as part of it, we set up a doggy kissing booth, and the doggy kissing booth made more money than the rest of their event. It was literally like a table with a slobbery dog with a kiss me for $5 sign. And they made bank, 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 bank. So sell the cute. It is a whole new game. The other thing is it's just a really great way to tell your story in the community. When you want to get products and you want to get those collars, leashes, bowls, get those little kids involved, man. Get them going. We joke and say that there's nothing that a classroom of 5th graders won't do for a free pizza. So like pit them against each other, man. Like be like, whoever gets me the most dog food gets the pizza. Okay? And the cool thing about that is, though it seems kind of silly, you could probably go get the dog food from, we mentioned Target earlier and PetSmart. Anytime you break a bag at a PetSmart, a Target, a Walmart, they got to give it away. Make sure they're giving it away to you guys, right? But you could get it from there. But think of what a great way this is to have really difficult conversations with children and with, people in general about domestic violence. It's just a great opportunity to have an easier way to have the conversation about really tough topics. And so you might not want to go into a classroom of 5th graders and be like, this is domestic violence and this is what it looks like. But if you want to say, there are people in trouble and they have pets, and can you at least help their pets? It gets them thinking about, well, what's the person doing? What's going on in that person's life too? But you've had a soft introduction into that really hard conversation. And then, ready for more. So, when we come and do a training, in addition to like all the things that we talk about and all the things that are on our website that I've mentioned, we just have so many other cool resources. So we do the in-person trainings. I think our next one, is Dallas. And then we have guest speakers. We have so many cool guest speakers that come, and whether they're from animal welfare or whether they are from domestic violence or homelessness, they tell their stories and they share their experiences. And so, why listen to us when you can listen to the people who are doing the work in the real world, right? And so lots of those. You guys did one for us, didn't you, Kate? Yeah. You did. Did you do a topic for us? I thought you did. Yeah. Yeah, it's on this website. It's all the same. It's all the same. Yeah. Yeah, it's on our site. Yeah. Yeah, we just, there's no, it's like, what's that old song? Blurred Lines? Yeah. Less Dirty, though. Less Dirty. That song was actually pretty racy. No. Katie and I do not blur lines like that. But we do blur lines between Greater Good Charities and Red Rover all the time. And so anytime we do a guest lecture or a guest talk, they're usually like 90 minutes, hour, depends, we videotape them and we put them up on our website so you can hear about them later and in the time that you have to listen to them. In addition to that, lots of times we get asked questions, whether it's insurance-related questions or things like that. And our team from Don't Forget the Pets, so it's half Greater Good Charities, half Red Rover, they'll look it up and they'll do a blog or a one-pager on, what does it mean to house service animals and ESAs and pets? What does that look like? So just lots of really good tips and tricks, emergency planning, evacuation stuff. So the blogs cover a lot of really cool topics that come up during our trainings from people doing the work. We have the video library, that's where the webinars are. And then we also have our deeper dives. Lots of times we get asked questions that don't have a very quick answer, something that seems so innocuous like, if I'm making a play yard, what is the best ground cover to use, So instead of us wasting time during training doing that, we just do a deeper dive video on it. Pretty fun. And then coaching. So our trainings that we do, the full day training is free, and then we also have a free coaching program. And so what that really involves is kind of above and beyond the 30,000-foot view we can give you during the training. You can sign up to receive our coaching, and that can be everything from like we hang out and get on a call with you like you guys do with your staff or your board and talk through like why is this type of programming important? What are your major concerns? How can we help get you from no to yes? And then we'll do, obviously, construction design. We have a scanner that we can scan or send you, and you can like scan your rooms and spaces. Our team brings it into AutoCAD, and we design a space that's very particular to your needs and your size and your space. We do policies and procedures. We can help with fundraising. We can help with collaboration. And so it's just really meant to be what does your organization very specifically need? And free. Did I say free? Yeah, cool. I love it. Okay, should that not be enough? I'd say reach out to me. You can, of course, reach out to me, but you know who answers their emails better? Gabby. Yeah, so definitely reach out to Gabby. Poor Maggie had a chica boy. I'm sorry. Something did happen to me. I have a busy job. It's insane. Reach out to Gabby. She's a way better communicator. Now you know. I know. I'm so sorry. Okay, so you will get this, so you'll have our contact info, and then questions, other than why does Teddy driving my truck? That's my other corgi. Love it. I love it. I love it. I didn't even pay her to say that. She's just nice. I know. No, it really is fun because honestly, like, it's the collaboration piece is I think what really makes pet programming successful, and it's so easy to be like me and ignore emails. My inbox is a hellscape. I cannot lie. And so, if I put you in a room together, then it's a lot harder to say no when you're looking somebody in the eye and you're like, you say you offer vetting services. Can you help me? I'd be like, oh, I'd be such a jerk if I said no right now. I can't be that jerk. So get everybody in a room. I love it. All we need is space. We're happy to do it. We have blessed sponsors who love to get us out in the community torturing you people with fun all-day training. Blech. I know it's a lot, right? Cool. All right, other questions, anything? Awesome. Well, you know how to find Gabby. Gabby's like, man. All right, well, thank you guys for listening, and definitely.
Thank you so much.